Numbskull, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim the Teacher, and next to me right over there is A.J. Hayes, the commentator of Common Sense. And tonight's show is Cycle of Mayhem in Plain Sight, and you thought that it was bad enough. You didn't think it was bad enough already, right? That's the name of it? I messed that up.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, we have a sterling show for you to watch tonight. I hope you enjoy it. I think we're going to start with a recap, AJ, about what we were talking about last week, because from what I understand, it bleeds into this week.
Yeah, folks, just a little recap on last week's show. We talked about the Democrats and they're dropping major diversion bombs. Title last week's show, if you remember, was called Diversion Bombs Have Been Deployed and Blinding Blood with Bucks. And those bucks are actually our tax dollars. But just to recap, because it will carry in tonight's show, which is obviously titled Just When You Thought It Couldn't Get Any Worse. Last week, we broke it down for you on governors in the various states all of a sudden popping into their Democrat-run cities. And, we don't make this up. These cities with the most carnage are Democrat-controlled and have been Democrat-controlled for quite some time. And magically, they just pop out of the woodwork and want to drop millions and millions of dollars into the cities for this, to solve the solution with all the carnage and bloodshed and shootings and violence. We broke it down and showed you, look at the timing of it. People are receiving their mail-in ballots. They have decisions to make. And the other part was, the Democrat Party, their numbers are in the tank thanks to their leader, the face of their party, Joe Biden. And so, that's kind of where we went with it. And it was almost like, look, we showed you there was a gentleman, who tries to take kids and keep them out of trouble in the cities. There's a lot of people in the cities who have had enough, and they are shopping around for. It's so bad now they're actually finally shopping around for different leadership and starting to really evaluate this and say, look, this has gotten way out of hand. You can't sit on the front porch of your home. You can't walk to the local grocery store. The crime rate is through the roof. And, like we said, all of a sudden the diversion bombs, meaning these governors pop in there and just magically, look at the timing of it. They're going to donate $30 million to help curb the violence or whatever shtick the different governors in the various states are using, because they know they're in a real pinch right now, that it's gotten too wild. And the people who are shopping around down there who voted for them for years and years and years, these loyal Democrat supporters, and, enough is enough. And it's all just imploding on them. So apparently, after we did in last week's show, that's why we touched on it. Apparently, based on what we see a week later, that's not working too good for them. So we're going to jump right into tonight's show. And Jim, if you could pull up photo video number 1, and if you see that headline right there, just like we do every week, folks, here on the Cycle of Mayhem in Plain Sight, we're going to try and remove the smoke and mirrors, lift up the curtain, and show you things that are right there in plain sight, just like the title of the show says, for you to digest, make your own opinion on. But you'll see a lot of times these things are right in front of your face, and they're going on, and it's the ugly little inner workings of the slime ball swamp, politicians' greed, but it's always at the expense of the little of the families and the little guy or gals. So you take a look at this article here. It's in from Law Enforcement Today. What law and order? Biden nominates police bashing pro-criminal district attorneys. So it's nothing new that you see here this pattern allegedly with George Soros funding these hand-picked district attorneys that, and this has gone back with over a time of a couple years, who just refuse or very, very selective with enforcing any type of law and order. There's an issue going on right now in Chicago, believe it or not. And here on Cyclone Mayhem, we will give credit where credit is due. And Mayor Lightfoot over there in Chicago was not doing too well. She just wasn't, seemed like she was making a common sense decision and was holding really partisan, frankly, dangerous things. And just recently there was a shooting, just giving you an outline of it. Apparently 5 suspects were apprehended, and I believe they had video and a fair amount of evidence. And the district attorney refused to prosecute or was really not pushing hard to do her job. And Mayor Lightfoot pushed back. So there's that infighting that we touched on last week going on within the Democratic Party. It sounds like the Marxist hard left part of the party is trying to do their thing, and the I wouldn't necessarily call the mayor of Chicago a moderate Democrat, but they're realizing that this is off the rails. So getting back to this article, these DAs are spread out throughout the country, and this movement has been going on. And we're going to start off with that because, again, it's just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. And I want you to follow these 4 or 5 things we're going to go over on the show tonight. Is how the hell did that work out with these DAs getting there? And they are Democrat district attorneys, and they're coming up with every excuse not to enforce law and order or have selective enforcement of law and order. And we take a look at these inner cities and even in the suburban areas now where murder rates are up almost 70%, and in some areas it's up higher. Shootings are up almost 70%, and in some areas higher. Commercial theft, and I think we're being a little conservative here, is beyond up 60%. And to give you an idea of commercial theft, you might have saw where certain stores, if you go in and you steal under $500 worth of merchandise, they won't prosecute you or they won't apprehend you or whatever the policy is. But you think about that for a second. Who ultimately pays the price on that when all these goods are being stolen and, the store's losing revenue and their profit and loss statements aren't lined up? That gets passed on to the law-abiding, the law-abiding people who are trying to already make do because of the skyrocketing cost of everything under this administration. And now they're going to have tacked onto that. The stores are going to be forced to raise prices to cover the loss because people are walking out the door and not paying for items, and there's no repercussions for it in the majority of these Democrat-controlled cities. So again, what the hell do you think would happen? I mean, going back in November, I think a lot of people, Democrat, Republican, independents especially, thought that when this was being put out there, that these DAs and this ideology was frankly dangerous. I don't think they believed it. I thought maybe there was a group of people who may have thought, it's just political rhetoric and all that. Well, look where we're at now. Look where we're at, and look at the carnage that's going on in the streets, from the murder all the way down to the quality of life things. People are, in some cities, they're just taking over and riding illegal vehicles up and down the street and terrorizing people. It's just it's something that you'd never see in America. You never thought you'd see in America. So I think it's fair to say, and you can make your own judgment on this, as the headline on this article says, it wasn't just a political weapon that was deployed to sway a voter. These ideologies are real, and the fallout is happening, and it's happening right in front of our faces, and it's not getting any better. So, that's part one of what we're going to show you. So hold that thought in mind, and Jim, if we can go to the Reuters article. All right, we're going to look what else this administration's doing. In a nutshell, guess view, Biden tax crusade puts privacy at risk. And basically what the article talks about, and some of you folks may have heard it, is basically weaponizing the IRS, where if you put $600 or more in your account in any way, shape, or form, chances are you're going to get a knock on the door, or a letter, or something like that from the IRS asking you where it came from. and what's going on. Now, that might hit you right away when you read that. Say, what the hell's going on here? But what is it really all about? When you look at that, don't think everything, all the goods, cost of living, necessities, essentials, gasoline, everything is going up. You go to the grocery store, and a family of 5 probably easy dumps $300. So where does, to my understanding, Jim, it was $9,999. If you put that kind of money in, the IRS would start sniffing around on the bank. Yeah. So 10,000. How did we go from 10,000 to $600? Something's not right. Something's going on here, folks. And I ask you to tap your common sense. So look what we first talked about was the anti-law enforcement / amnesia when it comes to enforcing law and order and the violence and mayhem that it's creating on the streets. Now we have, under the same administration, the IRS wanting to hunt you down as American citizens if you show $600 in your bank accounts. And you're welcome to, again, review the show and read deeper into these articles. And we're just going to keep moving forward here. And if you could pull up, Jim, the Washington Trust article. Now, the other thing that was going on, it kind of falls in with these DAs, was a lot of the Democrats in the hard left and you know, the words defund the police, you saw it all over the pictures. I mean, that was a piece of the Democrat movement, and the Democrats were behind that. But apparently that didn't work out too well because people are seeing the carnage on the streets. So some are trying to say, get rid of that. It never happened. You know, we don't use that term, defund the police. However, in this article, Jim, can you slide down the headline there for a second? In this particular order, the commander-in-chief, or as Jim says, the man who sleeps in the White House, he uses the term when it comes to Border Patrol agents and other law enforcement, they will pay. Is there much difference between defund the police? You know, that's not popular. Again, a lot of this, in fact, most of it, if not all of it, has to do with maintaining political power and control. Is, you know, they will pay. Does that kind of sound like it falls in line with defund the police, but without using the word defund the police?
Right. There you go. He then pledged, it's right there. He then pledged those people will pay.
Yeah. And what's he talking about? Those people. He's talking about law enforcement, whether it be border agents or local law enforcement officers that are down there on the border trying to enforce the laws that are in the books. You know, they're there to enforce the laws. These brave men and women in law enforcement, they don't create the legislation. They don't create the laws. They're sworn to uphold them, and they're doing that. But this administration is still doubling down, just using a different term and sending their subliminal message out there to the radical left that no, we're not supporting police. We're not going to use defund the police, although some still stand by that and they're tripling down on it. You know, but he gets that across that, you know, crucify law enforcement at any opportunity that you get. And you could see that that's not working out. I mean, he wants, you know, he again, the words that he used, they will pay. Say that to yourselves for a second, folks. The people who are paid to protect us and keep us safe, the commander-in-chief says they will pay. And if you notice, there was, I guess you would call it fake news or bullshit, whatever you want to call it, where people tried to inflame that video where the officers were on the horses, that they were lashing people, and that fizzled out real quick. And you can bet your bottom dollar that if it was real and had merit, I would assume that would still be on the front page of you know, all these so-called news outlets, and they'd be diverting away from, you know, the other serious issues going on in the country. But just to recap, you know, we have the DAs, these DAs that are being appointed that are turning a blind eye to everything from petty crimes all the way up the scale till murder now. Look into that situation going on in Chicago and every other Democrat-controlled city. You have that anti-police rhetoric still going on from the commander-in-chief. Where is this going? We have the IRS. This administration went the IRS to hunt you down for $600 showing up in the bank. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Jim, you want to pull up the Yahoo article?
Sure.
Okay, so where does that lead us? We just showed you a couple of things here where anti-police don't enforce the serious major crimes, pretty much put law enforcement in a box and don't allow them to do their job. However, if you're a local resident and you want to attend your school board meeting to hear what's going on or question or just human nature show frustration, not even, we don't condone violence here on the cycle of Mayhem, never will, but just exercising your rights to attend the meeting and to hear your voice heard and tell your school board of representatives what you want, what you don't want in the school. They're quick to turn around and consider that domestic terrorism and want to activate federal law enforcement as if, folks, in every school district, there could have been a loony bird here or there that went in there and crossed the line, and they should be prosecuted accordingly if they broke the law. But this blanket statement and these letters that are going out to try and intimidate everyday hardworking people of the community to deter them from attending their local school board meeting to find out what's going on and whether these different ideologies being taught in the school.
AJ,
what the hell's going on here?
I have it on good legal authority that the cases that this was brought up by the the School Boards Association, National School Boards Association, and the cases or incidents that they mentioned, only one of them is one of violence, but regardless, they are all meant to be handled. If there is any type of issue or threat or anything, it doesn't go to the federal government. It goes to the state or local. We all know that, but this is, as an educator of 20 years, I invite parents into my classroom. I invite them to observe what I have. There's no reason why I wouldn't want them in there, because I have nothing to hide, and I want their input. Parents are supposed to be the ones who are responsible for their children, and so when I have a parent that's involved, I like that. I don't understand why these administrators and these schools are getting all defensive, other than the fact that they're completely doing subversive behavior. But to me, it's simple. I like it when I have a parent involved, even if I may disagree with them, because at least I know that they're at home. That child is getting the support they need. I get what you mean. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous on many levels. But parents are supposed to be involved in their education.
Let's look at the authority and jurisdiction that would fall under. Remember, these are local municipalities, right. Not even statewide. They're within the states, and the people there, the voters, the taxpayers, have the right to go to attend these meetings and express themselves in a peaceful way. And if they were to get out of line or someone would cross the line, you touched on it. That is the authority of local law enforcement, local municipalities to go in and handle each situation on a case-by-case basis. But where did we escalate to the point where, Jim, you want to pull up that letter? Do you have that keyed up? Here it is. Where is it? I don't know if you can zoom in on it. Where the federal authorities get involved here and whatever the intention may be of this letter, it's escalated to a federal level that they'll get involved. And is this letter designed to deter people from going and exercising their rights to ask questions of their local representatives, especially the people who make decisions for their children? Folks, whether you are pro-CRT, whether you're against CRT, and the different types of ideologies. Some people believe parents should have a little bit more say in the personal issues when it comes to sexual preferences and maturity and things like that should be done in the home, not in the classroom. Whatever your view is, as long as you're lawfully presenting your opinion at the public meeting that you have every legal right to be at, there should be no intimidation. But now let's back up a second, like we touched on earlier. We can't get, where's this letter saying, hey, if you shoot somebody and you're involved with drug dealing, gang violence, bringing drugs across the board, we're going to send the federal agents down there to lock you up and charge you federally. Something's not right. Something just doesn't seem right. Jim, am I reading this wrong, or am I misunderstanding something here? What the hell is going on?
The only thing that you may be missing is the fact that the entire thing of them feeling intimidated is because what they're doing to the schools is wrong. When they're indoctrinating and pushing this crap on our kids, they're doing the wrong thing, and they got caught. That's the problem. They got caught, and they're losing the argument. They know they're losing the argument because parents are waking up to what's going on, and they're getting tired of it. COVID backfired on them because now parents got a chance to hear these teachers teach this crazy stuff in school, and by extension, their parents are now responding to it. So COVID backfired on them for that, and on top of it, now that they're caught, they know they're losing the argument. They do what all totalitarians throughout history have done. The moment they start to lose control, they tighten down the screws and they push you and keep you into that corner. So I mean, I'm not surprised that this went to where it is now. None of us should be really surprised because this is again what totalitarians do, and the people like so-called moderate Merrick Garland, the guy who's the Attorney General, are nothing more than totalitarians, following orders from the guy who sleeps in the White House next to the woman he thinks is his sister,
or the big donor in the bank who funds them.
Which is also the side of it, which you nailed it, because it turns out that if you look at the finances of the School Boards Association, they are a major funder of the Democrats. There you go. So you'll find that the money, it's always follow the money, and don't be surprised at this. I'm not surprised. I'm less surprised about this than I am the fact that they're shipping illegals into red states. I mean, I'm not surprised by any of it.
Folks, like if you look at these 4 or 5 things we just outlined, there's this legislation, the $3 trillion, $6 trillion, whatever's on the floor. I believe it's 2,500 or 3,000 pages. It's a stack. Started as an infrastructure bill, and buried in that bill is parts that would basically take away, and I'm being vague, but staying in the lane here, without a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. But basically, the states control the elections. It's the way our founding forefathers knew. Some psychopaths would come along somewhere in the future and possibly do this, and there was a reason why it was designed for the states to control their elections and control the inner workings of each individual state. And in that trillions of dollars, whatever number they come up with, is hitting in there the basically trying to federalize everything. Look what we just outlined. We can't. There's carnage on the street, and remember, our law enforcement, okay, whether it's at the local level or all the way up to the men and women in the federal level who put their lives on the line every day, we fund that. And where would that resource, a common sense question here, where would those resources be better put to sit there and use federal resources to go police local community school boards meetings, or use those, and not only the law enforcement side of it, but these IRS agents? I understand this administration wants to hire 75,000 or something like that. Check the number, because we try to be accurate here on the Cycle of Mayhem. but it's in the tens of thousands of additional IRS agents to hunt down $600, while millions of dollars worth of fentanyl is coming over the border, while bodies are dropping like flies in all these cities. Take that financial resources and deploy these experienced law enforcement officers where they need to be done to stop carnage, instead of trying to, the article says they're trying to tag community people going to their local school board meeting as domestic terrorists. Is that like the word? If you try to exercise your First Amendment rights and you don't go along with the good old boys club, you're a domestic terrorist? I know there was a lot of talk about that with Trump supporters and all that, but this is going well beyond that. This is not Trump supporters. The people who attend these meetings, the majority, are working people every day who are just now getting word that something's going on in the schools that's, and frankly, in some cases, horrifying to these parents. I'm not going to get graphic. It's so disgusting that it's something you wouldn't talk about in a bar with a bunch of men drinking beer and smoking a cigar. Mm-hmm. But some of the books that are in middle school talk about a sexual interaction with a father and a daughter, and we're going to stop it there because it gets very graphic. You can look it up for yourself. If you're a parent and you hear this, you don't think you want to know what's going on. And when you find out in some of these schools run by some of these loony birds that this is there, I think some parents, just as a human being, would show emotion as long as they kept it in line and didn't break any law. Some of the highlights, again, there's a lot of school board meetings that are going on, but some of the highlights of that people captured on cameras and such were the people that were being arrested. They didn't put it out there in the news that they were actually they weren't in the opposition to let parents do a certain amount of stuff at home, or the parents that are questioning CRT and the sexuality part of the curriculum that is seeping into the schools, if you want to call it indoctrination. These were opposition that went in there, and these people got nasty with parents. And in some cases, the people who were getting nasty and causing the disturbances didn't even live in the community. So, I mean, something's going on here where we're going to spend tax money to chase down $600, not use any of these resources to stop murders and violent crime in these inner cities, but you're going to come out into a school board meeting and line it with the Gestapo? Like, I don't know.
AJ, it's like, like I said before, they're losing the argument, but I will say that the Democrats and the people in power, they've learned a new word. Remember, at the beginning of the year, it was white supremacist. White supremacist. For 4 years, we heard how about white supremacist. Well,
and it was debunked.
They have a new phrase, and they've had to move on from that phrase. What do they have?
Domestic terrorists.
Yep. It's their new phrase. It's their new phrase that they want to use against anybody who steps out of line. That's you, that's me, that's all the people watching this, that's all your friends and neighbors who are disagreeing with government. Just think, a year ago, there was burning down the cities, there was people being murdered in the streets, there was riots, there was uncontrolled destruction. Hell, there was even part of Seattle that was taken over and made into an autonomous unit. And
I think it still is in certain areas, isn't it?
Yeah, they never rose to domestic terrorists. But you go down to that school board meeting, you complain about CRT and the evils of Marxism and the evils that indoctrination is being done by that school system, and you all of a sudden get labeled a domestic terrorist. You have more chance to either sneak across the border with your
sneak. Whoa! I got to interrupt you for a second. Yeah, you don't have to sneak across the border. You could put yourself in a lime green shirt, walk around with a backpack of fentanyl, and you'll be welcome with a handshake, a bottle of water, and a sandwich.
Exactly, and a shirt, a Biden shirt. Don't forget the Biden shirt.
Yeah. Well,
so you're right. You can walk across the border with 100 pounds of fentanyl and not be considered dangerous. With COVID, no less. With COVID, or with measles, or with any of the other diseases that we have to be worried about. But you can go into Chicago, shoot up a neighborhood, and not have to, and it be called. It was labeled actually a disagreement. between people. It wasn't even like labeled as a danger. Someone, no one went to jail for, right? The one that you mentioned. You
Well,
could do that.
the last I understood was
Two people died from it.
yes, yeah, there was, and the last I heard about it was there was video. They apprehended 5 suspects. It was pretty substantial. And again, the mayor of I don't know if it's coming from the heart, if she has a change of heart, the mayor of Chicago, but she's pushing back against one of these radical DAs. And again, is it for more? Has it finally hit her conscience and morally trying to do the right thing? We can't speak for that, but
you now, AJ, I got to correct you.
Sure,
she has no moral compass. She has what most of these people who have political power on the left and on the right, what they recognize is when they start losing that power, when it starts slipping away, and they realize, oh, maybe this isn't working out. Maybe I should do something about it. I'll come out hard for defending the people, or getting these criminals off the street. That's when they realize. You see it over and over again. It's just the way they are. It's the way they're built. Like, hey, listen, you are a nice, honorable, good guy who speaks the truth and has no problem with the truth, no matter, even if it's something you agree with or not, you're willing to hear it. Those people, they don't want to hear the truth. What they want to hear is, how do I get elected next? What do I have to do to get elected? Who do I have to screw in order to get the money that I need to run my campaign? You know it as well as I do. That's what their motivator is. Moral compass? What the hell is that? They think that is something on a map getting you to the town of Morrill.
Yeah, you go back and look at prior episodes on the show, and you always try. I know I try to always be, optimistic. Like I said in one of the shows, I believe it was 2 episodes ago, I welcome viewers to chime in. Name one thing that this administration has done right. And I don't say that with sarcasm. I say it with disgust that, look, there was a lot of skepticism when this election was coming up and the candidates, came to fruition. There was a lot of suspicion where, hiding in the basement and different types of theory. As we fast forward, when has this president exposed himself to any real dialogue with a real reporter without being everything, if you want to call it
coached?
Stage?
Yeah.
Coached. I don't think he's coachable. But, it's, look, folks, for those of you who didn't like President Trump for whatever reasons, and he gave you some reasons not to, okay, voting for Biden was one thing. Supporting him and his policies now, if you do, based on what's out there and you can't hide it, something's wrong. And this country's in trouble. We're in trouble, and we do not do conspiracy theory stuff on this show. We're not going to go there. It's just a waste of goddamn time. We try to deal with, again, what's in plain sight, what's going on right in front of your eyes for you to check it, point you in the direction so you can make rational decisions before you vote. And let's face it, the propaganda machine really brainwashed a lot of people in the last election. Could there have been some mishaps with counting? Again, I don't like to go there because it's about looking towards the future. But those people who might have drank the Kool-Aid and didn't particularly care for President Trump, and this episode isn't about, vote for Trump. No, it's where we're at now. 9 months later, the title of the show is Just When You Thought It Couldn't Get Any Worse. It seems like every week it gets worse and worse. And what is this whole thing leading to? And just this week, I talked to so many different people, from the folks that live in the inner cities to suburbia, all different age groups, and don't engage them in political talk or current events. So the last thing you want to do is, when you talk to someone, is talk about the news. It'll make you throw up in a bucket. But they bring it up, and they said, and these people are not thin-skinned, but they're also not barbaric. And just with a very, very concerned look in their face, men and women both, different sayings like, we're in really bad shape, or I'm really scared, or we're in trouble. So this is hitting the people, their conscience of people who don't normally follow along with political stuff or who's in charge or who's supposed to be representing them. And now these people are seeing it and they don't know which way to turn. They don't know where we're America, right? We could just throw a switch and make everything better. Well, I think for a while there we were pretty good at it, but I don't know. I don't know if this continues on this path. And again, I think you're right. I know you're right, Jim. The motivation for all this is maintain power and control. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I read 2,500 pages of this multi-trillion-dollar bill, but apparently there's a big chunk of it that has to do with manipulation of election law that would enable a certain party to be in there forever. And I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, independents usually don't make it to the big stage, but if you're Republican or Democrat, you can't give too much power. That's why you need that balance of power. And frankly, this administration, I haven't seen anything done right. Not one positive thing. The press secretary gets on there. I catch it here and there. And it almost looks like she's going to have a meltdown, because how much can you keep diverting from the mayhem? And it's not just the man who sleeps in the White House, as you say. It's the people who he signed. Some of these people are questionably nuts. I mean, the things that they do, if you have a DVR, you find yourself, wait, did I just hear that? Rewind. And that's not coming out of fake news. You hear it actually out of their own mouths. And it's just, again, if you look back at the different things we talked about tonight and how we broke it down, this path, and again, a lot of people are feeling it who are not really in the political stratosphere as far as they live every day 365, focusing on who's supposed to be representing them. But now it hit them in the pocket first, gets their attention always, and now it's like that sense of safety. And I don't even think the news media, it's at the point now where they can even suppress it anymore. People are seeing things with their own eyes.
Brother John points out that they're like Baghdad Bob. Remember Baghdad Bob? Remember him when the Iraqi invasion, when the U.S. tanks were sitting outside of Baghdad, and he was being questioned about this in Baghdad, and he was like, "There's no U.S. tanks. We're defeating them. We've thrown them back. They're back at the Kuwaiti border." He was just throwing up these lies. Baghdad Bob. Well, Baghdad Bob is now the entire media set of outlets. It's not one person. It's all of them. They have all jumped the shark to foster the lies, and just like that Jen Psaki and the spokesperson, the crummy spokesperson, the liar. This is what they are. This is what they've become because they have no other choice.
Yeah. Well, at this point, we say it every show, folks. You have to take a little bit of time to zero in on these issues and see what's going around, because a lot of this was able to advance forward from people being ill-informed and just trusting in whatever they're seeing on the news. And we're not going to dive too much into it, but I have, and this is just my personal belief, I have deep skepticism about the whistleblower with this whole Facebook situation. I was watching a little bit, bits and pieces. I recorded some of it to catch it. And I don't know why, but it just popped into my head to say, is this on purpose? Is this another smoke and mirrors thing where big whistleblower, because it seems like a lot of these tech companies do run ads and talk about more regulation and stuff to make it look like they're your friend. But
right.
I'm just we'll put it out there on the show and we'll see what happens. But I'm just having a funny feeling, not saying the witness is incredible or anything like that, but something's just saying that.
Saying she might be a plant to get them to put more regulation in, so that they guarantee that they hold on to the position of social media instead of having some upstarts come up like Rumble or Parler or something like that can take over.
I don't know if it's necessarily the platform, but I think it's like if you come, like, things are heating up with the social media. There's a lot of dangerous things coming out of it. I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, think about this for a second. Keeping it real simple. You can't sign up for this if you're under the age of 13. Now, come on, folks. It's not like they're walking in to go buy a six-pack and they have to present an ID. And even then, I think kids, you buy a pair of sneakers and from China you can get an ID now. It's almost real. But, boy, that's really enforcing something. Where, okay, are you over? It's like going on a website that advertises alcohol before you get on. Are you over 21? Yeah. But the answer to your question is, I think the skepticism comes in where they know there's something coming down the pipeline where if you put something out there and make it look like, in the background, it's a question. I'm not saying that that's for sure, but a question, I guess, raises, by doing it that way, would there be a motive that, in essence, behind the scenes, they would still control what type of legislation gets in there? Hey, well, it's not like they're cooperating. Apparently, what's his name? The little guy, Zuck, the guy that owns, that guy. He was out there sailing or something like that, wind sailing or something, when the hearing was going on. But just something about it. Again, we looked at the timing. A lot of these things. The ballots are coming out. A certain political party is tanking majorly. Everything they do turns to shit. Every decision making right now and just don't seem to be for the best interest of the country. And a lot of it is common sense. Right. I'm reserved on it. I'm very reserved. We'll see. Okay. Hopefully, it falls under the monopoly. There was rules and laws placed that you to prevent monopolies. And I would argue that, look, these platforms we wouldn't be able to do this show without the platform. But where does it cross the line where it's gotten out of hand and it could be weaponized, whether it's to affect children through one point that was said on there was talking about interaction. But before social media, if you said something unkind to someone, you had the ability to see their facial expressions, and if you said something and you had a little bit of a conscience, by their expression, their facial expression, you realize that wasn't very nice, and you might back off. But through social media, where it's just a bunch of text and script, you don't get to see that, and you don't know the damage that's really being done to an individual. That when it goes beyond, just breaking chops and horse playing around. So we'll see. I mean, I hope they could at least crack down on that. But we'll see. Are they going to dig into these algorithms and the way things work and really give people the right to opt out? I mean, look at everything you sign up for now. Everything's intertwined. Like, it used to be your phone and you had a separate app for this and a separate app for that. And now everything is starting to intertwine with each other, and you don't need to be a tech genius to know that. Everything is starting to integrate. Even different platforms start to integrate. And I believe it starts to cross over the line to the Fourth Amendment. I think it starts to, it's like, quick sign here on the dotted line. Nobody reads that pages and pages of disclaimers before they click accept, especially a 13-year-old, and, a kid that's 13 years old or a kid that's 16 years old, they could put stuff out there that can come back in life and haunt them. If they're on the wrong side of the political ideology, for sure, everybody sees that. But, folks, like we say every week, this mess that's going on, you really have to hone in this upcoming election, whether it's governor races or local dog catcher, school board, council commissioner, and you really need to take a hard look. I think you have to take, voting partisan apparently didn't work out too well in the last election, and you have to look and really dig deep to see what people represent. And I think if you could find, especially on the local level, someone from the community who really doesn't have that political backing or background of schnoozing and all that kind of stuff, if you could get a couple of those people, in your local government to represent you. I think it's a start one community at a time, one state at a time, and just maybe we could stop some of this carnage and nonsense that's going on.
AJ, we're at 45 minutes, 46 minutes actually.
Yep.
I don't know if you wanted to throw any more. I did forget to mention up in the top corner, all the way over there by you, day 53 of the Afghan hostage crisis. We have Americans behind enemy lines. We have Afghans who were coming to America, part of the allies in the war on terror, who are still behind enemy lines and still suffering for it, has been aptly reported by Lara Logan repeatedly, and she's shown some very graphic pictures. But I wanted to reference that, and I wanted to remind everybody, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, and by all means, let us know what you think. But AJ, I just wanted to put that in there, and before you go any further, if you have anything, if you want to end it, roll it through, or...
Well, I was just, maybe on the opposite side of the screen, you could put the amount of days that went by before the commander-in-chief or the vice commander-in-chief actually made their way to the front lines on the border. I think it's maybe up over 30. I don't think he's been there since he's been in office. I don't know.
I don't think he's been there before that either. I mean, I heard somebody say that he's never been to the border, which would make sense considering he's from Delaware. He wouldn't have gone down to the border because there was no reason for him to want to have the border ever closed. There's no reason for him to go for a photo op down there.
Well, maybe
a regular politician would.
Maybe we could get a GoFundMe. We'll chip in a couple bucks to put a Scranton sign down there, and he'll think he's in Scranton.
That's a good point.
But
I like that.
It's funny, but it's pathetic, and
it is.
The morale. Leave it with this. The morale again of the frontline people who are out there trying to protect and serve the communities, and keep a lid on it and keep communities safe. Is just take a look around the military. Speaking to some soldiers, active, inactive. Some of the inactive guys have a lot of contacts with the active soldiers. Morale is, apparently not good. This is just unacceptable, and we're hoping to be able to do a show where we can bring some positive light on something that starts moving in the right direction. But as we always say in this show, just a reminder, come, check us out, watch us live Wednesday night, 8:00, and be sure to tune in on Ballistic Patriot every Sunday night for the Brotherhood of Liberty. We try to bring you some good content, try to stay straight to the point, and really, again, our mission here is to get you and point you in the direction where you can see it for your own eyes. Sometimes you might overlook something, and we'll point it out, and you can see it and make your own decision. But as always, be kind, be friendly. There's some people in the world who are just mean and nasty and shitty by nature. Majority of people are just frustrated right now. Their patience are being tested. Take the high road, be nice, be kind. And if you do attend these meetings, don't take any bait. Get your points across, be professional, and outclass people.
Yeah, and don't be a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, don't go there. Enough said, but thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
God bless.
Quiet, numbskull, come broad.